Hey, everybody, it's Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with me again my good friend, Julie Teal, TTS
Hello.
Company. Hey,
Hi,
Julie.
Doug. Great to be here today. Thanks for having me on your podcast again. Glad to be here.
And for a change, we're not in a busy corridor of some show, and people are bumping into each
That's
other, and
right.
their
That's
bands
right. A
playing in
little
the background.
calmer. Yes,
Yeah, a little
exactly.
calmer.
Yes.
So, we're going to be talking about a very interesting idea that and an interesting question. When people are hiring, when you're staffing up, when you're replacing people, and so on,
Mhm.
do you go and hire someone who has no experience but great potential, possibly,
Mhm.
or do you pick a person with a lot of experience? There's
Mhm.
no right answer to this, but Julie has a lot of thoughts for us today. So we're going to dive into that in just a second. But first of all, what is TTS Company?
So, TTS Company is my rebrand of my original firm, Teal Talent Strategy, because we're growing and we're positioned to really help all size companies in the technology space, MSPs, all the related industries around technology and client service to grow. And, we help companies address the people issues that often stand in the way of growth. So, whether that's helping you address performance problems, which is not my favorite part of HR, but it's really valuable to have somebody help you walk through a performance issue or some behavioral issue on your team. We have advisors that do that. To just recently, I did an organizational redesign where a company that was 70 people was operating the same way they were at 30 people, and it required a bit of a redesign to get them operating at the size they were now at. So to kind of step into that level of growth. So we cover a wide range of addressing HR issues to make sure that you're positioned not only to replace yourself as the CEO and get out of the day-to-day people issues, but you're positioned to really hit that next level and serve that next round of clients that's out there waiting for your help.
So, Julie, yeah, let's get into the topic we've talked about,
Yeah.
because I can see a good case for either approach, right? We're
Mhm.
growing our company, we're doing new things. Maybe I should hire brand new talent, shape them, mold them from the
Mhm.
beginning. It's very appealing.
Mhm.
On the other hand, there's often great talent available who may have just come off of work with from a company very similar, lots of industry
Sure.
experience and stuff
Sure.
like that. What's the right choice? What's the path?
Yeah, I mean, I am certainly like, we're going to talk a bit about today about the value of experience. So as we jump into that, there is always a place in organizations for people that have a lot of potential, that don't have a lot of experience. So there's certainly a place for that. But I think where I see a lot of business owners going wrong is that's their first. It's kind of a fun hire, and it's often a faster hire to bring in someone that is not as experienced, that maybe hits part of that profile of the skills you're looking for, but isn't all the way there. And when you move fast and bring in someone like that without a plan, it can really backfire, because when you're bringing in new people into your organization, it's to take work off your plate, right? There's been growth, there's been something as a leader you need to hand off to that person. And if they're junior, you need to train them. And I think a lot of leaders underestimate the time it takes in order to really get someone up to speed. So, a junior person to operate at that level you're targeting. So I think that's a place where I see a lot of leaders go wrong. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is just I've done a lot of advising CEOs and founders to like wait for that experienced person, take the extra time to screen, because that experienced person is going to make a meaningful difference in your day-to-day work life. But again, it takes a little more screening. And again, the training is different, but it's not as intense when you bring in somebody that's got been there, done that in the
Oh,
industry. Yeah.
so let's talk through some of the sort of, I think, the common objections, or the sort of yes but issues, right? So the first one that comes up is, so Julie, wouldn't I be like hiring some other company's bad habits or bad ideas or something of this kind?
Sure, sure. Well, that certainly is a concern, but that's why you go through an interview process. And because there are a lot of really talented people on the market today that are just through the shrinkage in the market have been are now available to hire.
Right.
And so I wouldn't I think there maybe was a time where you had to be a little careful with that, but right now I know there's a lot of really talented people that are out there just waiting to make a contribution to your organization. So, but that's why you want to go through an interview process. It's not a one and done thing, especially when you're hiring experienced people, because you're not only you want to have a. I always recommend a first interview to really get to know the person, both their technical skills and their professional, like their personal professional skills, like teamwork and those sorts of things. And if you like them, talk to them one more time. And that's when you talk about any of the reservations you have. So that reservation, like you're saying, so tell me more about why you left that last company. Tell me more about, if you are concerned, I'm concerned that you're going to be following that previous company's way of operating. We operate different here. Can you talk to me
Hmm.
how you've adapted in similar situations? So there's a kind of initial to see the fit, then you go deeper. That second interview is the one typically where it helps you confirm whether that person is really going to fit or not.
So the interview process is more than just sort of a perfunctory, thing we have to check off. There's actually a dynamic that I'm learning here about like matching what I actually want.
Mhm.
I don't want just a person to do this function. It
Sure.
sounds like in this case, we're asking you, how adaptable are you? Will you, get on board our way of doing things?
That's right. That's right. And that's where, as an owner, taking a little bit of time to really look at your team, look at yourself. What is it about how your organization gets things done, how your team gets things done that makes you so successful? Is it that you're really customer service oriented? Is it that you're really a team player? Is it that everybody, has a job but is willing to step in and help in other jobs? So every company has its own kind of culture and way of doing things, and really starting to articulate that, like I worked for a company that didn't have a lot of structure. So they didn't have titles. They didn't have, like, no one had a title. No one had they had no offices. It was all really kind of like, I would call it kind of a rebellious culture. It was super cool. Like, I loved being
Right.
part of that company, but it wasn't for everybody. So we really, if you had an ego that was really tied to your title, you are not going to be happy there. And so we screened for that. Like, it was like we had questions around kind of like more ego driven or self individual driven recognition, because it was definitely a team orientation and teamwork oriented company. So that's just one example, but I think every company has their secret sauce on what makes someone really successful there. The minute you can articulate that and put a few interview questions behind it, you're going to be able to hire with a lot of confidence.
So are we actually looking for a culture match, or is that the way of putting it?
Yeah, it is. It is. That is exactly what I'm talking about, is this idea of finding that culture match in addition to the technical skills. So, and again, you're going to be able to tell from the resume and from that first conversation whether the person can actually do the work. Then the question is, are they going to fit in your environment? And that's where additional questions come in.
So, like an obvious one would be like a person who maybe came out of a very hierarchical company.
Correct.
You don't
Yes.
hold that against them. It sounds like what I'm hearing is you don't hold the total sum of the
Hmm.
previous experience against them. They worked for
Sure.
another company, right?
Yes.
But the person might say, "Yeah, I was not a good fit there." Um,
Hmm.
Maybe they're not going to say that directly, right? They want the job. They don't want to sound like a rebel even
Yeah.
before they
Yeah.
begin. But in other words, you're saying to look for clues about what the person's really saying, and does it match what you want to do, and
That's
so on.
right. does it match the profile of the people who are really successful within your organization? So, taking a little bit of time. So I'm a big fan of, this is it's like you have to stop before you interview and start searching for someone to think through, what do I really need? Like, what are the core technical experiences that this person needs to have? And what are the personal characteristics that they need to have? Like, again, another organization I worked at, people were really expected to be very self-reflective, like to really be self-aware and to be able to speak the language of, hey, I thought about that. I realized I, should have handled that differently. A lot of that kind of like a heavy humility type of company. And so we did interview for this idea of, how is this person humble? Like, are they able to talk about their successes and do it in a way that acknowledges all the other people that contributed to that success? Those are the people that we knew were going to be really successful at a different organization. So it's every company has that formula. And I think starting off thinking about the technical skills, those personal skills, and then again, where am I more likely to find that? Is that someone that's done it for 5 years? Is that someone that's done it for 10? So thinking that through for the profile, and then again, going out looking for that is critical. It makes a big difference in moving farther faster as an organization.
Julie, let me ask it from entirely the other way around.
Sure.
So also, are we looking for someone who actually will bring in other words, as much as maybe we want to keep our old culture and so on, are we sometimes looking for new ideas, new perspectives? The person's been in the industry, they've seen what they've seen, but they're fresh eyes for you.
Sure, 100%. I mean, that's where, again, as you're hiring other leaders in particular, I think this becomes really, really important, because leaders really set the tone for the culture of the organization. So, especially when you're hiring a leadership position, think about, like, the biggest question you can ask yourself, I think, is, are you hiring for where your business is now, or are you hiring for where you want to go? And being really thoughtful about the leaders you bring in will help set the tone for what leadership will be and what your organization will be in the future. And especially looking for people that balance out, like, if you're really good with clients, but you really need someone that's better on the public speaking circuit, that's able to go out and represent your company, have that be part of the profile of what you're looking for. You're really trying to put together a leadership team that represents all the different needs of the organization. You can't do it yourself as a single founder, owner, CEO. You've got to build that team that is positioned to get you to that next level.
Julie, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to cover, but I think you've given us something to think about. Where can we learn more about this topic and also about TTS Company?
Absolutely. So my new website is thettscompany.com, and that has a number of different resources on it. And actually, I wrote an article about this topic on my LinkedIn page. So if you look up Julie M. Teal, Thiel, on LinkedIn, there is an article there. And you never know, there may be something on this topic coming to TR Resellers blog as well. So this is a topic that I think is really important for thinking about as you build a business. You've got to be building with the future in mind, and experienced people will get you there. They will.
Julie, if I'm running an MSP as we close up, if I'm running an MSP and I'm starting to think about hiring someone, can I talk to you for free initially? Can I get a free consultation?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I offer free 30-minute discovery calls. And again, looking to build relationships for the long run. So even if you have a general HR question that you're not sure where to take it, I'm always happy to have those conversations. So yeah, absolutely.
Julie Teal, TTS Company, thank you very much indeed. Looking forward to our next podcast.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Doug. Thank you.